Um, We are moving on to hearing on 21-0160 Building Code Cool Roofs. And I will turn the floor over to the bill sponsor, Chairman Conway, for an introduction to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate you giving the bill an opportunity in the hearing today. You all know I've been talking a lot about environmental issues through my background, and so excited to have an opportunity to talk about this bill today. I want to give a little bit on why we put it forward. So, of course, climate change is an existential threat to our world, but certainly our city. And not only is it a broad threat, but we're feeling it already today. The urban heat island effect is a significant problem, such that low-income neighborhoods with less tree cover and more brick and concrete, it can sometimes be 14 degrees hotter on hot days in the summer. So when thinking about tackling this problem, it's an equity issue. We talk about the urban heat island effect. It's a very local issue. It's not something that can be addressed by some other entity. And so, cool roofs is a low cost, no cost solution to begin to address this issue. Also, there's a double down benefit to looking at cool roofs. Now, cool roofs, not only do they have the benefit of reducing the amount of heat that a house can absorb during hot summer days, they also have the added benefit of reducing energy costs. And we know that for low-income neighborhoods, the additional cost of energy is sometimes burdensome. So further making the equity issue that much worse. So, there are a number of reasons why beginning to look at this problem is really important, globally and also locally. These are decisions that households have to make every day. How to cool their home, how to deal with the heat during the summer. And a 14-degree difference is sometimes unbearable. This has a huge impact also on communities with the urban heat island effect. The likelihood that people go outside in the summer is a big matter of whether or not it's actually too hot out in your neighborhood. And some neighborhoods are significantly hotter. Using cool roofs can significantly reduce the impact of the urban heat island effect. So that's why I'm putting this forward. There are a number of reasons why this is a good idea. And those are just a few. So how it works, what is a cool roof? A cool roof is very simply one of three things. It is either a reflective roof, and that can be so simple as using white or light colored materials. It is a green roof. You guys may be familiar with green roofs, where you can use plant material on a roof, or it could be a solar roof. A solar roof, of course, absorbs the light from the sun and then uses that to create energy. All would have a significant benefit to the household, of course, to the city and the neighborhood, as you talk about the ambient air temperature as a result of the heating buildings. So, once again, cool roofs add a number of benefits to the table. As we put this bill forward, it was initially intended for this to be a bill that really started with the city and looking at city funding to make sure that the city, we all caring about climate change, put our money where our mouth was once again, and made sure that projects owned by the city, funded by the city, would fund cool roofs as opposed to dark roofs that or roofs that absorb more heat and are less efficient, so that the city would take on that responsibility and set a higher standard. Of course, we've gotten some of our bill reports now back that find some difficulty in doing that, setting it up that way. So I had a conversation with the chair and asked that we not vote this bill out today, so that we can consider what a broader bill would look like. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversation today. I'm really looking forward to the insight from the agencies that had a chance to pull together their reports, and any additional insight, of course, testimony about the bill and how it might be received. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity, and I look forward to a discussion on the bill.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have, do you want to move on to panel folks, or do you want to go to agencies first? Which do you prefer?
We can go into the agencies.
Okay. All right, I will just call you out in the order that I see you. I see Mara James. Would you like to begin?
Thank you. Mara James, Legislative and Engagement Lead for the Department of Finance. We stand by our report. We do not oppose this legislation.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I see Stephanie.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Stephanie Murdoch, Legislative Liaison for DHCD. I'm also joined here today by Jason Hessler, our Deputy Commissioner of Permits and Litigation. DHCD stands by our bill report and views this legislation as a friendly modification to the family of codes that make up our building, fire, and related codes. As the councilman said, the installation of cool roofs may help residents save money with energy costs, reduce energy consumption, improve comfort, and benefit the environment. In fact, DHCD is already encouraging the installation of cool roofs when working with homeowners in need of roof repairs or replacements who are participating in our housing rehabilitation and repairs programs in our agency's Office of Homeownership and Housing Preservation. So we are a little bit ahead of the curve. While we support the intent of the bill, we do have a concern around the language in the purpose clause, which refers to projects that are partially financed using city funds. It is unclear how partially financed is defined and who would be making that determination. We would recommend a amendment to it would be on page 1, line 4 of the bill, to delete partly financed using city funds from the bill. It would be very difficult for our permitting staff to know how a project is being funded and if any funds were being provided by the city when reviewing a permit application. Otherwise, we thank you for your consideration of our amendment request, and we stand by to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Hey, Stephanie, can you just clarify one thing on, you were saying only things that were financed by the city. Can you just elaborate on that?
Sure. The purpose clause of the legislation applies this requirement to projects that are partially financed using city funds, but there's no definition of what partially financed means. So it would be difficult for our permitting staff when reviewing an application to know the sources of funding on various projects. So our amendment to remove that language would make this bill applicable to, the universe of properties rather than projects contingent on a certain funding source.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And Jason, did you want to add anything other than that beautiful background you have?
No, Councilman, I'm happy to progress with Ms. Murdoch stated.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, there's not so many people with their cameras on, so I'll just go agency by agency for the remaining. Do we have somebody from fire here?
Mr. Chair, I don't believe we have a representative from the fire department here, but this is Nina Themelis with the Mayor's Office of Government Relations, and they stand by their report as far as having no objection to the passage of the bill.
Okay, and BMZA?
Same thing with BMZA, Nina Themelis, Mayor's Office of Government Relations. We don't have a representative available today, but they do stand by their report in deferring to the planning department.
All right, DGS?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Chair.
Good afternoon, Annie Fullers, Legislative Liaison for DGS. I am joined by our Capital Projects and Energy Chief, Marwan Al-Kharajat, our Deputy Chief of Energy, Julia Callas, and our Facilities Chief, Terrell Chesson. DGS stands by our submitted response. We remain unopposed to the resolution and are happy to field any questions from the committee as needed.
Well, so I guess you brought enough people to cover all the agencies that aren't present.
We did.
Thank you. Next up is planning.
Hi, good afternoon, Chairman and Committee. Ava Richardson, Sustainability Manager with the Office of Sustainability, representing both the Planning Department and Sustainability, joined by Lisa McNeely, Director of Sustainability. In our report, we are favorable to the bill as it aligns with the goals in our 2019 Sustainability Plan to mitigate the urban heat island effect through the installation of cool roofs and green roofs. And we stand by our report.
Okay, thank you so much. I see Hillary here on behalf of law.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I don't have my camera on, but the Law Department approves the bill as written for form and legal sufficiency. We noted what the sponsor noted, that the purpose clause doesn't really line up with the text of the bill. The text of the bill is legal. You could make this change for every roof in the city. If you wanted to make it only applicable to those roofs that have certain financing from the city, as HCD said, that would probably have to be clarified. That would also be legal, but you would just have to clarify that in the text. But as it's written right now, it would apply to all roofs, and that change is also legal, so you could do it that way.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I did, but is there any agency present that I missed?
Mr. Chair, I believe we skipped over the Department of Public Works, where they also don't have a representative available at this moment, but they stand by their bill report with no objection, but also agree for the need for clarification as to what the partially city funded portion of the purpose clause means.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council? For any agencies? Anybody? Okay. Councilman Conway, do you have anybody you'd like to present?
No, I don't think we have anybody presenting today. I just want to thank the agencies for taking a hard look at it and for the feedback. And so we're actually we're gonna take this time, I think, to get some more feedback on what that broader perspective would look like, because as you're fully aware, the intention was to have this to be initially a bit focused. I see it seems we do have we have testimony from advocates. I think they are guests.
Yeah, I'll get, yeah.
I think they'll speak in the public testimony piece.
Yeah, I'll go through that list. I just want to see if there's anything else. Maybe if you want to just give like another just explanation for everybody who's at home, all the millions of people that are watching this on Charm TV.
All 12.
Explaining the how these cool roofs work. I obviously know, thanks to you and the research that I've done leading up to this hearing. I know more about cool roofs than I ever thought I'd ever want to know. But if you can just explain to people how it works, and then also what your intention is at this point of who you want it to apply to and how you want it to apply to them.
Sure. So as it was initially intended, it would apply to any projects funded by the city, partially funded by the city. Now, of course, as the actual changes to the code are lined up, it's not set that way thus far, and we would have to amend the bill to fix that. Nonetheless, the way cool roofs work is quite simple. There's 3 types of cool roofs. You have light colored, typically cool roofs. You can have dark colored cool roofs that are reflective, but they cost more. Light colored cool roofs, like a white painted roof or a light gray painted roof, can reflect up to 80% of the light and heat away from a building, significantly decreasing the energy costs during the summer. And as we know, we talk about this every single summer. It gets incredibly hot in Baltimore, upwards of 100. Last year was one of the hottest on record ever. And we've seen that for like the past 4 years. We know this is an issue that's not going to get any better, knowing that climate change will make our particular climate closer to a southern city. Like I think Memphis is the comparison that we're often getting now. So we know it's going to get hotter in Baltimore. We know what to expect. We know heat is going to continue to be a problem. This is one way for the city to, at a low cost, or if we'd like it, no cost, or even maybe at a savings, given the finances report, potentially a savings, reduce some of the heat impacts in some of our communities simply by changing the materials for our roofs. the intention here was initially for city-funded projects. We are going to look at a broader perspective, but I want to make sure that we get enough feedback to understand what that means before we move forward. So we're going to give it a little bit more time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing us to do that.
All right, and I actually have a question for you that I just came up with today because it is a very cold day, but at the same time, it is also very sunny, at least up here in Northwest Baltimore it is. And so, you know, when obviously in the heat of the summer, we know that, you know, people have to run their air conditionings all day and, you know, and that impact. But on days like today in the winter where it's sunny, but also cold, wouldn't this have the adverse effect where we have to now, you know, use a lot more energy to heat our homes on a sunny day like today because of, you know, if we were to have a cool roof as opposed to having a standard one?
Yes, that is a slight difference, but the consideration here is the insulation between your roof and the inside of your home will often keep the heat inside your home in your home. So yes, that is a slight difference. Your home is heated a little bit, but when you think about lengthening summers, which we know to be happening, because just like 2 weeks ago, it was 60 degrees outside, and shortening winters mean that heat is going to be our problem. Heat is going to be our problem into the future, and we're not even halfway there with the impacts of climate change. So this is really a resilience consideration that we should be thoughtful about now, as opposed to responding in 20 years when it's too late.
Okay, that actually gave me something to look up. I'm gonna look up my energy bills and consumption. I'm pretty sure it's significantly higher in the winter months than it is in the summer months, but I'll take a look at that. I see Councilwoman Ramos, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilman Conway, for bringing us this bill. I was curious, just going back to the sort of partially city funded versus not, I think we should go broader. I think we should probably just do it. And so what would be the considerations and that we wouldn't go broader and try to mandate that all new roofs are cool roofs?
Yeah, so I too would like to go broader. I think the important consideration there is making sure that as this bill was presented, it wasn't presented that way. So I want to make sure that our due diligence is done and making sure that we reach out to all the people that this may impact. With just initially putting this forward as things funded by the city, it's a very different consideration. Now, when we go broader, this impacts everybody who has to replace a roof, or everyone who has to repair a roof beyond a certain point, beyond 50%. So I think we just want to be very cognizant about what that means before we do that. And so I want to make sure we give a little bit more time before we take a vote on it.
Mr. Chair, can I follow up?
Sure.
So there's probably a cost consideration as well, or not? Like in terms of a regular roof is one price and a cool roof is a different price. I mean, I could probably paint my roof white and it should be fine, but I don't, it may not work that way. So maybe we need that kind of breakdown for the next year.
Yeah, so what this would do is it'd be for new roofs and repairs over 50% of the roof, and only for certain roofs. If you go through the bill, there are certain exemptions already. Yeah, so for new roofs, if you were replacing a roof or building a new building and putting a new roof on, it would then have to be a cool roof. And as far as the costs are concerned, at the very lowest level, using lighter colored materials costs nothing. The cost difference is negligent. If not, by the estimates in the finance report, it could be cheaper on average. So that's something to consider. I think there are more expensive options that over the long term can yield better benefits. For instance, if you wanted to consider solar, there are a lot more considerations that may save you money over 10, 20 years, but it's much more expensive on the front end. So I think those are the considerations. But as far as making decisions today, this could be in many ways implemented today. It's literally just using, instead of a black rubber roof, you'd use a white rubber roof, and they cost essentially the same.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, and just to weigh in on that also, I mean, I called a handful of different roofers to get their take on this. And like I told Councilman Conway, I spoke to a roofer who is very pro cool roofs and who tried pushing it on all of his residential clients um, that were getting their roofs redone with his company. And he said, even though you could get some of the same shingles for the same price, that they all rejected it when they saw just the appearance wise. And so by having a lighter color roof, it gives the home a completely different appearance. And in addition to that, if you wanted one that had darker colors, but also had certain energy efficiencies and stuff, it would be a lot more costly. And obviously roofs are one of the largest costs for homeowners. So increasing that any more than it already is certainly going to be a big barrier in the city. But if we have nobody else who wants to testify, I can go ahead to the attendees. Any other council folks or anybody else on any panelists have anything to say?
Mr. Chair, I want to, I think in given that concern or statement, I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is this is a global crisis that is inevitable. There, as I mentioned before, there are darker roofs that are reflective, but they do cost more money. So that option is still available for folks. You can still get a darker reflective roof. Those materials are available. That said, if you're going for the cheapest option, you just use white materials or you paint the dark materials white. So I think those options still exist, and I think they're options, I think, for everybody. But that said, when we're weighing the costs and benefits of roof materials, we have to keep in mind we're talking about communities that are dealing with 14-degree differences in heat index during hot days in the summer. 100 in one area and 85 in another. It's pretty significant. And if we're going to really think about this more holistically, we can't ignore that other side as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Anybody else before we move on to the attendees? Richard, if you can go through attendees one by one for public
Yes, sir.
testimony.
First, we have David Pontius. David Pontius.
He's from my office.
Oh, okay. We have Dick Williams. Dick Williams, no response, Chair. Moving on to Doug Schmidt.
Yes, hello. I can't seem to get my camera working, so I know many of you all, hopefully, someone wave if you can hear me. Terrific. So I am here to testify. Well, thank you all so much for hearing my comments. I'm here to testify not in support actually or opposition, but in a request, as the councilman said, that the vote be delayed. The proposed amendment to change this rule or this law from city property to essentially all properties as of yesterday just raises a number of questions and concerns. I'm a local developer. I put hundreds of thousands of square feet of roofs on buildings in the city. And just so everyone knows, 100% of them have been white. But at the same time, I'm not certain that, in essence, outlawing non-cool roofs always makes the most sense. And just to raise some questions here, which I think need to be answered before you all would vote on something like this. There are energy codes and green building codes that already encourage white roofs. So one of the questions is this a necessary mandate? Two, there are certain cases, from what I understand, where a black roof may be more energy efficient, particularly in industrial application where there is no air conditioning and it is strictly a heating situation. So maybe there is a way to look at excluding some things or possibly having a process where someone proposing a different type of roof could appeal for other reasons. A common roof style that you don't see built quite as often today that has been used in the past is a ballasted roof, where you may have a black membrane, but then have white stone on top, keeping it there, which technically isn't a cool roof, but has many of the same characteristics. I looked around the city. I did my little Google Earth, and I see most of the new buildings are white, but Berry Plastics building on the old GM site is a black roof. So it'd be interesting to understand why they built that and what was the purpose of black over white when, as Councilman Conway said, the cost is basically the same. Also, I question when the law would be enacted, because I'm sure there are folks that are in process of building. They may have gotten permits and approval. Again, I suspect they probably have white roofs, but is a grandfathering mechanism makes sense. And then I also wonder why we would exclude shingled roofs. There's certainly a lot of those roofs that are put on, and as Councilman Schleifer said, there are options. And overall, I think a mandate like this, particularly if it doesn't have maybe an end date on the bill where it could be reassessed, you wonder how future innovation would potentially be stifled by this. Is this, is maybe the intent the way to go rather than the word cool roof? So again, only being in the building industry for a long time, I know there are constant innovation, be it insulation, materials, other things. So I do believe that a little more study in this to make sure that the bill comes out in a way to achieve the goals that everyone has without creating unintended consequences that are negative would be prudent.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to one piece of that?
Sure.
So the bill excludes buildings that are not air conditioned. So if this is an outdoor building or it's an area that is not air conditioned, it would not be included in the bill. So the example given, that wouldn't be an issue. And I think certainly willing to consider, I appreciate the insight about grandfathering in projects in process, realizing that the design and materials and otherwise have already been acquired or they're well along their way. So that can certainly be taken into consideration. And I think as far as future innovation, I think it's simply a matter of amending what the understanding of a cool roof is later on. But nonetheless, I think ensuring that the issue of heat is appropriately resolved with physical infrastructure is, I think, the important consideration. So yeah, all great points. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Richard, can you move on to the next one?
Okay, we could go back. Mr. Dick Williams just chatted that he was having,
Mic issues.
okay.
Can you hear me now?
Are you there now?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I am very strongly in favor of Mark Conway's bill for green roofs in our city. As to the comment about roofers leading the way on this, I think the more likely professional entity to lead the way is architects. They are, many of them, LEED certified, so they understand what Mark has just elucidated for the committee to know, that is to the benefits. And so I think that's where to go. And, you know, there just has to be a start someplace. And I think to mandate it across the board, when knowing that the architectural community will likely, in the main, fully support it, is the way to get this adopted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Let's try. Gabriel Watson. Gabriel Watson. No response. Okay. Jose Perez. Jose Perez. Okay. Simply. Kai. No response. Okay. We should have Kristen Ollendorf. I probably should have promoted her. Kristen Ollendorf, is there anything you want to say? Kristen Ollendorf.
Thank you. No, I have nothing on this. I'm actually here for the next hearing.
Okay. Maggie Keenan. Olivia Yates.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my camera is also not working, I don't think, but I have some testimony that I'd like to read. Dear Committee Chair Schleifer and members of the committee, my name is Olivia Yates, a Baltimore City resident and a member of Sunrise Movement Baltimore. Thank you for taking climate change seriously and listening to the community's concerns. Today, I am asking that you support building code cool roofs with amendments to require cool roofs on all new construction, as well as efforts to enact rapidly expand rooftop solar. As you know, much of the housing in Baltimore City is made up of row homes. Many of these row homes have a heat absorbing roof, and in the summer when these roofs get hotter, temperatures within the house, primarily on the top floor, rise, making it difficult to stay in the house. Speaking from experience, when a row home, mainly those without an installed cooling system, gets hot, the alternative is an air conditioner that is on all night and day. With a cool roof, energy bills will be reduced by the decreasing need for air conditioners and help used and inefficient air conditioners to provide enough cooling. Another way cool roofs will be helpful is in schools. I remember vividly my days in middle school sitting in the sweltering heat with nothing but a fan to cool the room. On those days, the last place I wanted to be was in school because it was simply too hot. Cool roofs are not only a chance to cool down schools, but it also gives students the chance to learn about the effects of climate change and the steps people are taking against it. Implementing cool roofs on buildings owned or funded by the city is positive, but it can be taken a step further by including an amendment that would require cool roofs to be built on all new construction. This will not only help fight climate change, but make the relief felt from cool roofs more widespread. Finally, cool roofs are a good first step in the fight against climate change and cooling down Baltimore while also uplifting those in low-income communities. When thinking about roofing, adapting to climate change with initiatives like these is important, but we urge the city to also enact efforts that will rapidly expand rooftop solar so that Baltimore can be a leader in preventing climate change. I urge you to support building code cool roofs. Thank you.
Next. Rob Feely. Rob Feely. Steph Compton.
Hello, thank you. And I want to thank Councilman Conway for your leadership on sponsoring of Cool Roofs Bill. Stephanie Compton with Energy Justice Network, also working on a deconstruction ordinance in the city. And that's why I'm here, because I feel like this work for Cool Roofs complements the other work that we're doing in the city. And I don't want to repeat any of the awesome benefits about Cool Roofs, but definitely want to echo all those benefits and add some more to it as far as the reflective roofs and cool roofs that lower the temperatures. It also contributes to the slowing of the formation of smog from air pollutants, as well as it decreases the greenhouse gases and other air pollutants, resulting in better air quality and slowed climate change. So for all these reasons, we're not opposed to the bill. And thank you for your leadership to the councilman and to the 9 council members co-sponsoring it.
Stephen Lees. Stephen Lees.
Oh, I actually didn't sign up. However, I am also with Sunrise Movement Baltimore, and I support Olivia's recent testimony in favor of this bill, plus amendments to expand it to include all new construction, as well as enacting efforts to rapidly expand rooftop solar as another roofing option for mitigating climate change as well as adapting. Thank you so much for introducing this bill, Mark Conway, and thank you to the City Council.
Okay. Taylor Smith.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, members of the committee, for the opportunity to provide testimony today. My name is Taylor Smith-Hams, and I'm the Advocacy and Outreach Senior Manager at Blue Water Baltimore. And our mission is to restore the quality of Baltimore's rivers, streams, and harbor to foster a healthy environment, a strong economy, and thriving communities. And we support this bill with some strengthening amendments. As we've talked about throughout this hearing, the climate crisis poses significant risks to Baltimore's communities, waterways, and environment. And one of the most noticeable effects of climate change is rising temperatures. Last year, Baltimore experienced over 50 days. And by 2080, Baltimore's climate is projected to resemble that of Cleveland, Mississippi, a town that is 9 degrees warmer than Baltimore. Because of the urban heat island effect, Baltimore concentrates heat more than surrounding areas, and this urban heat island effect does not affect people equally. Formerly red line neighborhoods have the least amount of trees and green space and are therefore the hottest neighborhoods in Baltimore. Rising temperatures also negatively affect the health of our waterways. As rainwater flows across the hot, impervious surfaces coating our city, it travels into the storm drains and discharges directly into the Jones Falls, Gwynns Falls, Herring Run, and the Baltimore Harbor. This unnaturally hot rainwater creates inhospitable conditions for the creatures that depend upon a balanced aquatic ecosystem. By requiring reflective solar and green roofs on new construction, this ordinance will help reduce the urban heat island effect while increasing renewable energy and lowering energy bills. It will also protect Baltimore's waterways from pollution because green roofs reduce the volume of stormwater running off of the tops of buildings. This is a really common sense step for the city to take, and it should be one component of the city's response to the climate crisis. To make more of an impact, we urge the City Council to amend this bill to include all new construction, not just the buildings and additions owned or funded by the city. Baltimore City must ensure equitable and affordable access to reflective solar and green roofs so that all residents can make the most of this important tool for climate mitigation and resilience. Thank you.
Theodore Henry.
Hello. I actually sat in more to learn about the bill than having any formal comments, but while listening, I just wanted to point out a few things. I am currently a student in the Hopkins Master's Program for Energy Policy and Climate. And, listening to what has been said, from what I have learned so far and read about Heat Island and more of the basic principles, I think the science is easily findable, that with everything from the incident angle of the sun in summertime versus wintertime, the role insulation plays and factors associated with that it's pretty clear that the value of cool roofs in the warmer months would far outweigh on an energy consumption basis than any help it would give in the winter months. I think that's pretty lock solid. And one anecdotal example of why I believe that to be true from beyond my studies is that I get notices from BG all the time in the warmer months to curb my use, and get a financial gain back to try to control demand side, where I have never received an email or a call from BG saying, hey, try not to use so much energy in January, right? But beyond that, I think one of the values of this bill that hasn't been discussed yet is the fact that as we get hotter and the summer gets longer, which we all know is happening, and that's very well proven, that one of the values of the Cool Roofs thing is try to protect our grid, right? And protect energy supply in the city in general and avoid future blackouts or brownouts, right? And then that obviously, that value turns immediately into avoiding higher expenses and greater impacts on the public health front, right? So that this is not a bill that's really solely, or I would say even half, about trying to make individual houses better and reducing the island effect. That's very important. But the fact is the city benefits much wider than just that, right? And certainly energy supply and grid management is going to become more and more important every year as we roll forward. So I appreciate the opportunity to just participate and learn more, and thank you very much.
Yolanda Kaysen. Yolanda Kaysen.
I have nothing.
Let's see. People are joining. Yaslin Machuca. Yaslin Machuca. Okay. Finally, Mr. Chair, we have Yvonne Moore. Yvonne Moore. Okay. Let me go back to the last two we made. Yolanda Kaysen. Yaslin Machuca.
No testimony.
Okay. Listen. Timothy McFadden.
Yes.
So you're on, sir.
No information.
Thank you. Okay, that exhausts the, okay. No. That exhausts the list of attendees, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Richard. Councilman Conway, do you have any closing remarks?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. This is Joe Woolman. I signed in before the hearing commenced, and
Go
I guess
ahead.
for some reason my name is not on the list of.
You're a panelist, Joe.
Panelist.
You could jump in anytime you want.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. And good afternoon. It's good to see everybody. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here on behalf of the Baltimore Development Work Group, BDW, and one of our members, Doug Schmidt, spoke earlier, so I won't repeat a lot of what he said. And I just want to appreciate or comment on our appreciation of the bill's sponsor, Chairman Conway, reaching out to members of the development community both yesterday and today. He and I had a productive conversation earlier today, and I do echo some of Mr. Schmidt's questions, which really is all they are at this point. Part of BDW's mission going back to 2007 was to certainly recognize well-intended purposes of legislation, but also to try to avoid unintended consequences. And particularly with the late in the day, if you will, expansion of the scope of this bill, we just want to be able to have a chance to comment in a more educated way and take a further look at this and make sure there aren't any unintended consequences. I certainly agree with a lot of the testimony that there's a well-intended purpose behind the legislation, and we're not looking to necessarily disagree with that. But questions surrounding grandfathering, expanding the scope, the definition of city funding, those type of things we definitely want to take a look at. So I appreciate the bill's sponsor, Chairman Conway, for reaching out to us. I appreciate the committee's willingness to postpone the vote today so that we have an opportunity to make sure there aren't any unintended consequences. So with that, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Conway, any closing remarks?
Yeah, I want to thank everybody for the support, especially the co-sponsors, and the community for coming out to support it, but also giving us an opportunity to work out some of the changes and what that would mean. I look forward to the conversation, hopefully in the next month, where we can actually move forward with this. But I want to thank you, Mr. Chair, for bringing forward the hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now in recess on this cool roofs bill. Anybody who is here for that bill, if you can please sign off. We are going to go into recess for 5 minutes to give Richard a chance to elevate anybody who's here for the next hearing, which is LO 22-0020.
Peter, please.
Department of Public Works, Miss Curbside Collections. So Richard, if you can elevate Kristen Ollendorf and have her let you know who else from the agency needs to be elevated, and then we will get started at 3:10.
Stump.